I am perplexed by Malum. Like, why? For those that don't know, a while ago, about 2 years ago, I reviewed a movie called Last Shift. It was a horror movie about a lady cop who is threatened by a cult who invades the police station and is plagued by hallucinations. I didn't like it. I thought it was too heavy on the hallucinations, and mainly that, but I did have some other smaller quibbles about it, but that was the main thing. The character's journey was a little and didn't really connect with me, and some of the filmmaking was shoddy, and it was very clearly on a low budget. And that was that. I thought I was done talking about that. I thought I would never talk about that movie ever again. But for some reason, this year, 2023, almost 10 years after the original movie, there is a remake of Last Shift called Malum. Or Malum, I don't know. And it is basically identical to Last Shift. It's so similar. There's a couple differences. You can tell the budget is clearly higher, the acting is better, the dialogue is better. It looks nicer on the whole. A lot of the jump scares aren't as laughable. The prostitute does not say, "I'll bet my tits and a pack of cigarettes," as much as I wanted her to. But like, the plot's basically the same. The sequence of events is basically the same. There's still way too many hallucinations that are just like, oh my god, something crazy's happening. And then they turn around and then it's gone, which is fun the first time. But then as it keeps happening, it deflates any tension because I have no idea if this is going to turn out to be real or not. So I'm just like, whatever. And it still has an awful ending, terribly predictable, and just bad. It's the same, and I don't get why this exists. I don't usually like saying stuff like that because every movie exists for no other reason than the person wanted to express themselves, right? But usually movies have like more of a reason than that. Like they want to say something or like entertain you or something. Like even remakes usually have a reason for them to be made. Like, oh, this movie was in another language, so we're gonna make a remake of it in our language. Or, hey, this movie's really old and kind of bad, but it has an interesting premise. Let's make a newer version. Even like shot-for-shot remakes usually have a reason. Like, Funny Game. The reason that movie was remade for America by the same director, it does bear a lot of comparisons to this movie. It had a reason to be remade. The point of that movie is sort of critiquing and analyzing horror movies, American horror movies. So it kind of makes sense it makes more sense for the story to be set in America. You know, it was kind of weird when the original wasn't set in America, even though it's critiquing a lot of American media. And you can judge those reasons for yourself, right? Like, I think remaking something because it's in a different language is stupid. And I think remaking something because the themes and what you're going for fits better for a different country, fits better for the movie to be set in a different country, I think that's a good reason. Here, I can't find the reason for this movie. I don't see a reason other than we have a bigger budget now, we can make it look nicer, and that'll be cool, which is fair enough, I guess, but like, as a viewer, it just didn't translate well. It wasn't enough of a reason for me as a viewer to be engaged with it. Now, part of that I know is because I've seen Last Shift and I know where this is going, and I'm aware of the problems with Last Shift. So I was just sort of sitting back with arms crossed saying, oh yeah, impress me, movie, which is not how you want to be watching a movie. But like, that's sort of a problem with the remake as a whole, right? If you've seen or even heard of Last Shift or seen my review or any review, you're gonna be like, what's the point? You're not gonna like this movie, I don't think. I think most of the people who like this movie are people who have not seen nor heard of Last Shift. That's really the best way to experience this movie, which is weird, right? Normally I would be all for something like this. Like, when I first heard of this, I was like, oh, I was kind of excited for it, because I was like, I think there should be more remakes of bad movies, or movies that don't live up to their potential. But I think there needed to be more differences. Like, I wanted to see different characters, different story progression, but it's basically the same. There are differences, there are subtle differences, but it's not enough to, like, I wasn't invested. And like, this would make more sense to me if Last Shift wasn't a big indie hit. Like, if a studio or someone asked me, hey, we'll give you some money to remake, I don't know, Make Brad Famous as a big budget movie now, I would say yes, but that's because Make Brad Famous was seen by like 50 people, right? But Last Shift was seen by people. It wasn't like a mega hit, but of course it wasn't. It's a low budget indie horror movie, and it became kind of a cult classic. A lot of people really like it. You know, so much of my review is me defending my opinion because I knew a lot of people like that movie. This wasn't like, oh, let's remake it so more people can get their eyes on it. It was on Netflix. Like, and it's not like people are seeing this movie. This movie has 336 ratings on IMDb, whereas Last Shift has 21,000 ratings on IMDb. So whatever reason he had to remake this movie, I don't think it panned out, even if you're ignoring the original film, right? Like, let's pretend it doesn't exist. This is the first one. I might have liked it more than the original, but it's still got the same problems. Like, it's still way too reliant on hallucinations. The ending still sucks. It's just like it's like a polished turd. So now we get to the dreaded question that most people ask of remakes. Is it better than the original? Normally, I think it's dumb to ask that question because, you know, remakes are supposed to be different, right? They're supposed to basically be a new take on the original film. But here it's basically shot for shot, so I think the comparison is warranted. I dislike this one more than Last Shift because at least Last Shift was like trying something. You know, it was trying out a new thing. It didn't work for me, but at least it was trying. This movie is just rehashing an old story, and that's about it. At least the original had a reason for existing. Yeah, I was going to film a video about Audition. I was going to talk about it, which I'll probably still do in the near future, but like, this movie just perplexed me so much. I just watched it. I ended up skipping through towards the end because I knew where it was going, and it was so similar that I was just like, who cares anymore? Let me just skip to the end. And what do you know? The ending still sucked. So that is Malum. And I just needed to talk about it. Listen, I'm sorry if this video was a little mean. I didn't like this movie. And yeah, I just didn't like it. So that was Malum. It exists. It's a thing. I just don't get it. I don't get it. That audition video will be coming up soon. I hope you enjoyed. Just don't watch this movie. Don't watch it.